How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me again for another color grading tutorial. Today we're going to be going over some tips and tricks and how I color grade my clips in Davinci Resolve 19.1. Do keep in mind that this does work with Davinci 18 and the free version of Davinci, but there's going to be some key differences, and we'll go over that in just a moment. First of all, you're going to want to select your clips. For the example, I've gone ahead and selected a daytime clip and a nighttime clip. Even though there's a flame, yes, it is still low light. So, some key differences between these two clips and why I chose them. This is from my skate park documentary. Link is down in the description below. If you haven't seen it yet, you absolutely should. So this is from my skate park documentary, and it's a daytime shot, and it's recorded in Cinema 4K, which is 4096 by 2160. That's full 4K. And the codec is H.264. Whereas this, for example, is 6K resolution, as you can see, and it was shot in ProRes 422. So just some key differences there as far as how the files actually interact. If it's lagging for you or not playing back properly, you can right click and click generate proxy media, which I'm not going to do just for time's sake, but regularly I would do that if I don't have proxies already, or I would just have proxies enabled in my camera. That being said, let's go ahead and drag both of these down here and head over to the color tab. There's a couple different steps here. First thing I typically like to do is get the CSTs ready right off the bat. So for this, you're going to want to be shooting in some kind of log space. For example, I shoot exclusively on a Zcam E2S6 for the most part. This is some S6 footage right here, matter of fact, and even though it's a Z-Log2 color space, whenever you're color grading, according to Kenson Liu, the CEO of the company, you should treat it like it's RE-Log3, or RE-Log-C3, I'm sorry. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to treat this like RE-Log-C3. So we're going to drag that first CST on there. And we're going to choose RE wide gamut 3 and RE-Log-C3. And we're going to change it over to a Davinci wide gamut and Davinci intermediate color space. And then for the end CST, we're going to go from Davinci to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. Now, the interesting thing about this is that if you are working with other cameras, for example, as long as you do this, your footage will always match, because that's something I see people who have difficulties color grading Zcam footage, especially in the user group, but also just in general, when you're working with multiple cameras, it can get confusing. So a lot of people struggle, like, how do I match my camera footage? Well, this is a really good tip for you guys to match your camera footage. If you change the input color space, whatever it is, whether it's Canon and Sony or whatever, if you change it to Davinci wide gamut, then you can, or ACES is another good workflow, then you can just convert that, have all of them go to the same kind of color space before going to Rec 709. Makes it easy. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and make another node and call this one lift gain. Now, I've seen arguments about this on the internet. This is just what works for me. This is what I've always done and what I typically do. I'm sure that there's other ways of doing this with curves and whatnot, but this is just what I like to do. So it's really personal preference for this one. But I'm going to use the lift and gain wheels to try and get this waveform between 0 and 1000 as best as possible. So as you can see, I can even visually see in the image here, you got this kind of log leftover kind of gray look here. So we're going to go ahead and drop that lift until we hit about 0. About right there. Looks good right there. We could go darker if I wanted, but I don't plan on going darker. And I'm cool with kind of where it's sitting at as far as the highlights goes, because obviously this is our highlight, so it's going to look super blown out. Now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and make another node. By the way, I'm hitting Alt-S on Windows to make these nodes, just so you know. We're going to call this one saturation. I'm going to go ahead and pull a little bit of that saturation. It's a little too colorful for me. We're going to Alt-S again. This one we're going to call tint. I'm going to change the tint. You can always go green, you can go red, you can do whatever you want here. Personally, I think that right there, a little bit of magenta works for me, for my purposes. Now, I'm going to go hit it with a little bit of contrast. Even though, yes, we've done lift and gain, I still want to add a little bit more contrast, give it a little bit more of that flavor. Right there works for me. And we're not clipping, in the darks yet. We're not completely crushing them, just enough to get the point across. last but not least, something that I like to do, Dehancer. Now, I know that a lot of colorists on the internet will say you should have Dehancer at the very end, just like we had with the CSTs. You should just have that set, and then you should use these to adjust how you like Dehancer to look. Personally, this is just my process. This isn't going to be the same for every single person or project. It's all personal preference. This is just how I make my content look the way it looks. So I'm going to drag Dehancer onto there. I'm going to change the input source to Davinci Resolve, or I'm sorry, just Davinci wide gamut and intermediate. So that way we're in the correct color space here. It'll change depending on how you're adjusting it. So we're going to go ahead and do Davinci intermediate. Something I like to do is just kind of close all these tabs and just go through them one by one. Less clutter. Lets me focus on what I need to focus first. First thing, I'm turning off film grain. I absolutely hate film grain, at least for most of my projects. I don't need it. Then I'm going to go choose my film stock. Typically what I do is I just click on one of the top ones and then I just scroll through it until I find one I really like. This one right here looks really interesting, but I've really been messing with Fuji 100 recently. I like that. I think I'm going to keep Fuji 100. And now, whenever we go to play through it, in full quality, this is in 6K quality, it looks absolutely amazing. This color is just absolutely beautiful. And then if we disable all the effects, prefer proxies, and play it, you can kind of see what the clip looks like. If I try and do it on the originals, or even on proxies, but with Dehancer, it's going to lag a little bit. But you get the idea here. All right. There we go. So now we're going to go for the second clip. This time it's a daytime clip, so it's going to be a little bit different. First thing I'm going to do, you already know, that color space transform for the beginning. RE gamut 3, RE log C3, Davinci wide gamut, and Davinci intermediate. Another transform, Davinci, Rec 709, gamut 2.4. Now we're in a Rec 709 color space, but we're working on it from Davinci. So first thing again, of course, as mentioned before, lift and gain. This is a good friend of mine. This is from my skate park documentary. Like I said, if you've not seen it, it's down in the description below. So I'm gonna go ahead and do our lift gain. We had some really nice levels here. The exposure for this was amazing. That right there is good. You can still see details in the clouds. So now I'm going to tint this. Looks a lot better in my opinion. We can also go to vector scope and kind of see this middle look here. And if we want to, we can change the offset just a tad bit to kind of change where that is. That's more clear, and as you can see, it makes a big difference. I'm going to go ahead and do saturation here. I'm going to pull back. Actually, I might add a little bit of saturation here instead of pulling it like I typically do. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to go ahead and run Dehancer here. Choose a film stock. I like this here, but it's a little bit too yellow for my taste. Wonder if there's another one. I really, really like this one. This Fuji 100 one, I've been liking this one a lot lately. If you want to, you can go to the film developer and change, for example, contrast. It's a bit much, or we can crush it if we want to. It really just depends on what you're looking for. Personally, I think a little bit less would do us a little bit of justice here. I like halation for a shot like this, and I think bloom would be really, really nice, but I wanted to lower it to like 10%. And then something I like to always do, and I kind of put this on my last node typically. Vignette. There's sapphire effects and there's the resolve effects. I'm just going to use resolve for you guys. Go to advanced, and then you can change the composite type to overlay, which is a trick a good editor friend of mine showed me, and then change the size from there. I'm going to change the softness of it. You're just going to play around with this. And there you go. Now, if I could edit this documentary over, I definitely would have done it in Resolve. I really, really regret having edited that project in Vegas. The audio would have been much better, and the color would have been much better if I edited in Davinci Resolve. So I'm kind of upset that I didn't do that. But this is how I typically grade in Davinci Resolve. This is how I've been doing all my latest projects and whatnot. I've got a couple projects in the works that I can't share just yet, but you guys are going to see some stuff about that pretty soon here. So hopefully I'll be able to show you guys something pretty soon here, but till then, these are the kinds of videos, or I'm sorry, this is the kind of color grading I do and whatnot, so hopefully this will help you guys on your journey of becoming filmmakers and great editors. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead, hop off here, let you guys get back to color grading. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.